A major voice in the fight against COVID-19 is stepping up its efforts in the battle. The Bill Melinda Gates Foundation announced a new $250 million commitment today targeted to the distribution of COVID-19 tests and vaccines. To talk with co-chair Melinda Gates about the foundation's work right now on the COVID-19 front.
We're looking at making sure our whole goal is to make sure that these vaccines get out to low and middle income countries. So part of this money is going to be used on procuring 200 million doses of vaccine for low and middle income countries and procuring 120 million rapid diagnostic tests for low and middle income countries.
How concerned are you about vaccine nationalism? Because when I see a pledge like this, really it's forward thinking, it's needed, but you hear so much talk that the vaccines will be concentrated in the U.S., the U.K., Europe will get their fair share. But to your point, really it's those small countries that will be hurt.
I'm deeply concerned whenever I hear about vaccine nationalism. I think we have a moral responsibility to make sure everybody gets vaccine. If there's an estimate that says that if only high-income countries get vaccine first, we're going to see twice as much death around the world, and we're going to have a much, much slower recovery of all of our economies, not just the middle and low income, but even the high-income countries.
What are some of the barriers to getting the vaccine into the arms of folks in those lower income countries? It's not necessarily just getting the vaccine to the country. How do you get it into the arm? I mean, we don't even know. We have logistical challenges here in the U.S. with cold chain storage. How could it be done successfully?
Well, you have to do a lot of good planning up front, and that needs to be happening now. But it is possible. We have a global mechanism that was set up about 20 years ago. We are part of this. We're part of setting it up. It's called the Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. What we can do is procure vaccines, and through Gavi, there is a whole distribution system that exists out in low-income countries that it comes to the hub, let's say in Kenya, in Nairobi, and then goes out to all of the country. It's totally possible. You just have to do the planning now.
Mm-hmm. How difficult will it be to get the vaccine distributed successfully, even here in the U.S.? There is a lot of optimism, and it's good to hear. We need this vaccine. We need it out. But this thought that you could just have the military distribute a vaccine and states will do their thing, there just doesn't seem to be any coordination.
Well, if you empower the CDC in the right way, the CDC is completely set up to help make sure that the right things are done in state after state and local region after local region. So again, it just takes very good planning to figure out which states get it, and then up for states to decide, okay, what part of our healthcare workforce gets it at the same time as the elderly, and then who gets it after that. But it's completely doable in a country like the United States. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's absolutely doable.
Based on your conversations with leaders across the world, is it too optimistic to expect half of the U.S. population to be vaccinated for COVID by the middle of next year?
I think by middle of next year, you could see half the U.S. vaccinated, because we have these two first mRNA vaccines coming, but then there are 3 more that are going to come very quickly behind that. Those are even easier to manufacture, and so I think you'll start to see lots and lots of doses available.
Your husband, Bill Gates, mentioned in a recent interview that things will be back to normal, or start to get back to normal, by the middle of next year as the population gets vaccinated. What do you think normal looks like? What is the new normal for corporations, or more broadly, just for humans?
I don't think we know what the new normal looks like. I think it's going to be different than the old normal, but how we do this, if you're lucky enough to have a job that you can do by screen and do from a different office or from home, I think we're going to go to hybrid models of that compared to what we've had in the past. I think education and schooling, I think we're going to put lots of kids are going to return to school, which would be fantastic. That's much needed. But I also think hopefully we'll start to learn some things from the digital models that were used by middle and high income kids of how to do some hybrid learning to help catch up kids who didn't have access to the digital tools. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that shift, and I think it's going to be a little bit hard to predict right now.
How do you expect to allocate more funds moving forward as the vaccine rolls out? What's some of your thinking on how the foundation could help?
Well, the foundation, with this new announcement that we've made today, is now we've committed over $1.75 billion to COVID tools. And that is to really make sure that we've done this incredibly difficult work as a scientific community. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you think about sitting here last March 30th, we would not have all thought we'd have vaccine here in December being given out, so approved and then started to roll out. So that initial piece of hard work is done. There's still a lot more science to come, but now we're really focused as a foundation on how do you get out to everybody and how do you get it distributed and keep everybody safe with the right tests, contact tracing, mask wearing, and the new vaccine as its tool.
Mm-hmm. Is the FDA still the gold standard? The FDA has come under a lot of fire, but should people still trust that the FDA will approve a vaccine that they can put successfully in their arm and not get sick?
Yes. The FDA is the gold standard in the United States. There are very good people who work on those regulations, and they are not going to let a vaccine come out until they know that it's safe and efficacious, because we rely on that to know that what we're putting in our bodies is safe. And so absolutely. And once they approve a vaccine, as soon as it's my turn to take it, when it comes to my age group and my risk profile, I'm getting it the day I can. But that will be after healthcare workers and the elderly.
There is a problem here too, vaccine misinformation. You can really go down a rabbit hole on social media with some of this information. How do you think that will hurt or hinder the uptake on the vaccination?
Well, we already know there's a tremendous amount of vaccine hesitancy because of the disinformation. And the disinformation is incredibly unfortunate because it actually results in people's deaths. If you don't do the right thing, you get COVID and you could die. So I think, people do go down, as you say, a rabbit hole on some other piece of disinformation. And then unfortunately, social media then serves up more disinformation. But one thing that I do think will happen is as the vaccine rolls out and we see healthcare workers safe, we see teachers returning to school, we see the elderly are safe, I think people start to ask their doctor, is this right for me? And then they'll decide to take it. So I think we will turn the tide on this, but I think it's going to take some time. But I think, you'll start to see the tide turning, I think, by next summer.
Do you think big tech has a role in helping to get rid of this misinformation? Melinda, I don't see them stepping up here, or thus far.
Well, I think you're seeing some of them do the right things to keep disinformation off their platform and to stop it or take it down. But I think absolutely more could be done. I think, social media has risen very, very quickly in society, and even the way it's used is changing. Honestly, it feels like in my teenager day by day and that age cohort. But I think the regulations have not only not kept up, they haven't gotten ahead of it. And I think it's time that they do. We have good regulations for TV broadcasting that were set many, many years ago. We have good regulations in the motion picture industry. It's time to have some good regulation on these social media platforms.
All right. And for more on my interview with Melinda Gates, head right now to yahoofinance.com. I've already plastered the homepage with a lot of articles, really very insightful stuff.